Wow, I'm so happy and excited to be at this cabin. This is a cabin. This is totally a cabin. On Camp Crystal Lake. I've always wanted to come here. Oh no. I better turn around and hope that nobody shows up. Um, hello? Gulp. He's right behind me, isn't he? Oh, hey, Jason. Fancy seeing you here. Hey, I know you're probably gonna kill me, but before you do that, I just want to say, I'm sorry about your mom. You know, if there's one thing I can relate to you with, it's being a kind of a big guy and having a dead mom. Um, yeah, sorry. Oh, um, I kind of thought he was gonna like kill me, and then that would make this whole in. All right then. All right, welcome to my video where I'm going to be talking about reviewing and ranking all of the Friday the 13th slash Jason Voorhees movies. I'm very excited because I've been planning this for a long time, and you'll see part of the reason why soon as well. But also, more importantly, we have to start with the original Friday the 13th from 1980.
Oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
So yeah, this is how the whole freaking franchise starts, is with this movie. Even though the month and date is different, we are in the 45th anniversary of this franchise. So that's pretty cool. But basically, this movie is interesting because it doesn't really have Jason as a killer yet. It's Pamela Voorhees, as they so famously talk about in that Scream movie or whatever. And ultimately, I think that this is a pretty decent movie. I mean, it's a slasher from the 80s, so it's gonna be a little generic, and it's not gonna be like the best thing you've ever seen, but you know, it still has its fun. For instance, there's a guy named Crazy Ralph who I love. He's one of those characters that these movies kind of lose after a little bit, where they don't really have these fun, like, quirky characters that help build up kind of like the story and the setting of Crystal Lake, because Crystal Lake itself should be more important than it ends up being. It usually kind of switches around to fit whatever is necessary, and that's okay. But I like when it's a very distinct place that feels real, that feels like a real small town kind of attraction sort of place. So I like that about it. Also, they kill a real actual snake in this one, so I feel bad for that snake and the owner. And I think that Pamela Voorhees is a good killer, despite how bad the like kind of reveal of her being the killer is. She shows up at the end of the movie, and what's his name, rain jacket guy is like, "Oh, it's you," and then she kills him, and then the viewing audience is like, "Wait, but who are you? I've never seen you before in my life." I don't think anyone's even actually mentioned you or your name before, so this isn't really a good twist. But either way, I like Pamela Voorhees. I think that the acting is pretty good, and I like her as a character. She's obviously mentally not fully there, but another part of it is that she does a boy voice for Jason, which is kind of telling her to kill people, where she goes like, "Kill them, mommy! Kill them," like that kind of thing, which is very interesting because the inverse ends up happening with Jason, where he hears his mom telling him to kill people. So it's a unique thing, and I like it in this movie. I think it's pretty good. Mostly it's the performance that kind of carries it, that helps it feel good. But also there's like a part of it that I like, because Pamela ends up just kind of like falling on her ass and stumbling around a bunch. It honestly kind of reminds me of Ghostface a little bit, it with how clumsy he can be. So I like the human aspect of it. Like it's a real thing that would happen. And then this movie also just has some pretty good like tense moments. I like most of like the kind of you're being stalked point of view shots that they have. I like the ki ma 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 type of thing that goes on. That's a good addition to the movie. One of my complaints is that the movie feels a little bit too dark sometimes visually, in that I can't see what the fuck is going on, but that's okay, I guess. And the problem with this movie is the problem with a lot of slashers, where the characters, they're pretty forgettable. I don't really remember them at all. I know Pamela, I know Crazy Ralph, and I know the final girl. Everyone else, I'm like, I don't care. You're just here. You're boring. You're bland. You do nothing. And then despite this being a pretty like off-screen kill type of movie, I think the deaths are actually pretty decent. Like they're not bad. Like eventually a lot of times they do end up showing the result of the deaths, and there's some good moments, like the Kevin Bacon arrow through the throat looks pretty good. There's like a neck slice that's pretty decent. And then there's like a guy that gets pinned to a door. So I think there are some decent kills, even if you don't really see them that much, but I still think they work. The other main problem is that the movie can feel kind of slow at times. Like it's meandering in a way that doesn't really add anything. Like there's a whole scene where the raincoat guy, he has a mustache. He drives to some like diner or something, and then he has to drive back to the camp or something. The entire time I'm like, what is the point of this? I don't really understand why this is in the movie. It doesn't add anything. It's just kind of runtime padding, it feels, but okay. And then I have something very important I need to talk about and start with this franchise. So my brain does this thing where it latches on to like little details here and there, and there's one thing that I noticed. A lot of these movies feature either some sort of storm and or like a vehicle breaking down, having issues of some sort. And guess what? This movie has both. And so I'm going to keep a tally for you, because this is definitely something you care about whether each movie has a storm or a vehicle breaking down, having difficulties in some way. And this movie does in fact have both. So there's that, and it's time for the next movie.
The day you count on for terror is not over.
All right, and now we have Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981. Yeah, I guess they bust this one out pretty quickly. Yeah, I think Part 2 is pretty damn good. This is the one that features good old Baghead Jason. He has like a burlap sack bag type of thing over his face. He does not yet have the iconic hockey mask. He just is covering his face with a bag, and he only has one little PPI hole in it. He has trouble seeing, I would imagine. I like this one because a lot of the characters actually feel good and unique. It feels like a proper sequel to the previous movie, in that it feels like it's actually kind of building upon what the first one set up. One of the interesting things to me about this movie is that it has Jason coming after the previous final girl, theoretically because she's the one that killed Pamela, like she, decapitates Pamela. But it's really funny to me because Jason leaves Crystal Lake and he just ends up in some like residential area where this girl is now living, and kills her at her like apartment or house or something. And I'm like, whoa, this is strange. I'm not used to Jason just kind of like getting out and about like that. I think I like it. The final girl this time around is Ginny, and I like her. I think she's a good final girl. Part of why I like her is that she actually uses her brain, which doesn't happen very often necessarily, but I like her for that reason. She is going to like school to be a psychologist or something, so she famously uses that to her advantage here. At the end of the movie, she disguises herself vaguely to look like Pamela in order to kind of confuse Jason, and I like it. I think it's good, and I think it's iconic. Also, we get a little bit more Betsy Palmer as Pamela Voorhees in this movie, so I'm going to appreciate that. that because she does a great job. And I actually weirdly think this might be one of my favorite versions of Jason. I just think he's kind of adorable and baby girl in this one. Like, the baghead is silly and it makes me laugh because like he's stumbling and falling and tripping all over this movie, and I think it's probably because one of his eyes is covered and he can't see so well. But also I appreciate that he has that like childlike personality and just kind of silliness to him, because yeah, of course he's going to be acting like a child. He grew up in the woods by himself and didn't really have anyone to teach him or educate him, so he's gonna be kind of developmentally hindered in some way. In fact, you kind of barely see Jason in this movie. They kind of leave that for the climax at the end, and I kind of like it. I like that you don't see the killer for a lot of it. It has a bit of the Jaws effect where if you don't see what's happening, it actually kind of makes it a little more tense and a little more scary. Unfortunately, the kills in this movie are not very good. Even though the first movie was kind of lame, I think this movie is even more lame in that department. I will say, however, that there is one that sticks out to me, and that is Mark's. Mark is the guy that is in a wheelchair, and I really like Mark. Again, I like a lot of the characters, surprisingly. Jason, you know, puts a machete through his face, and then he just rolls backwards down a set of stairs, like a very long set of stairs, for a long time. It feels weird because it's a guy in a wheelchair, but also the fact that this guy just rolls down this whole set of stairs. I don't know who came up with that, but I applaud them. It's good. And also, I feel like this movie is paced a little bit better than the original. It feels a little quicker, a little snappier, which is nice. And this movie is kind of special because it's the first time this franchise shows boobs. Can you believe it? It's actually this movie that starts it. It's not the first one. The first one was kind of PG-13. This one, we get a little bit of boobs. Also, they kill Crazy Ralph in this one, so that makes me sad. And also, this movie has both a storm and a vehicle kind of breaking down or having issues, so it continues the trend. Good job, Friday the 13th Part 2, but it's next. What? It's time for the next movie.
Because these are Jason's woods, and nobody leaves them alive.
All right, and now we move on to Friday the 13th Part 3 from 1982. Yeah, these first three movies are all coming out 1 year within each other. So yeah, this is quite possibly where Jason, I mean, it's where he gets the hockey mask. So this is where Jason becomes kind of the icon as we know him. But also, I feel like this is one of his more iconic looks. But yeah, ultimately, I will have to say that I don't think that this movie is that good. I think it's one of my least favorite in the franchise, but of course, we'll get to that at the ranking at the end. I don't know, it's just, it's very lackluster. It feels like the first two movies, but just done worse. The characters are very bland and boring. The plot is very bland and boring and slow. It doesn't have a whole lot going for it other than some fun kills and Jason becoming what he is known. It's important in general for the whole of the franchise, but as a movie, it's kind of mediocre at best. This is also kind of the movie that starts to make Jason feel more powerful. I wouldn't really go as far to say as he's supernatural yet, as I would argue he is in later movies, but he's certainly above human like strength and power in this movie. Like, he survives being hanged. He gets flung off a balcony and is hanged, and he pulls himself out of it after like being there unconscious for a little bit. I'm like, bro, Jason, god damn, you're one strong motherfucker. I like it. And then there are some pretty good kills in this movie, so that's always a fun thing to have in a slasher movie. For instance, there's a harpoon kill where Jason shoots a girl from like far away, and it goes like through her eye and like You see the eyeball. It's fun, I think. There's a handstand split, which I forgot about, which is kind of insane. There's some guy just doing a handstand, and then Jason splits him from, you know, what would normally be bottom up, and eventually they show him being like up in the rafters, and the gore's pretty good on it, so I like it. But unfortunately, this movie also has the problem of doing the whole 3D thing, and it never looks good. And this is the time when they're like doing like, whoa, see that it's 3D? I'm like, I do. It doesn't look good. But there is like kind of a well-known kill where a head gets squashed by Jason, like he pushes it and like the eyes pop out in the 3D way. Some people like this kill. I am not one of those people, mostly because I just don't think it looks that good. I appreciate the effort they put in. I think it's a good idea. I just don't think the actual result is good or worth it. All of the characters are pretty boring and lame. I don't really think any of them stand out, not even the final girl, which is not a good thing to do. The character that stands out the most is Shelly. Shelly very much comes off as like an r/nice guy, so, you know, not necessarily a fan favorite character, but I think he's interesting, and he is also the reason Jason gets the hockey mask, so you can thank Shelly for that. But yeah, the final girl, I think her name is Chris or something. She's very nothing. She doesn't really have any personality. In fact, she's not even in a lot of this movie. She's just kind of off somewhere for a little bit. When she ends up being the final girl and having to face off against Jason, I'm like, okay, I've barely spent time with you. I don't really care about you. But I mean, like, at least she puts up a good fight. Like, I give her credit for that, but it's just I don't really care about her. I feel bad for ragging on Chris, but Chris has a whole like monologue at some point, and I dare you to take a shot of water every time she sighs during this monologue. It's bad, dude. It's really bad. I hope people that have seen this movie just got a memory awoken within them from that, because it really stood out to me, and I would be remiss not to mention it. But also, yeah, this movie has a storm, and it has a vehicle, a trouble of some sort. So it continues the prompt, and it's time for the next movie.
He moves like a shadow, dark and silent.
All right, now it's time for Friday the 13th, the final chapter from 1984. Spoiler alert, it's not the final chapter. There's still like, 8 movies. Part of what I like about this movie is that somehow everyone feels a little autistic, which I appreciate because I am autistic myself. So I liked seeing that, and I do include Jason in that camp. But yeah, if you're worried about who the other ones are, there's a guy named Jimmy and Tommy Jarvis, of course. Motherfucker is obsessed with making horror masks. Come on, dude. I love that shit. That's awesome. This is the official start of the Tommy Jarvis timeline or saga, however you want to put it. Tommy Jarvis is in 3 movies. He is a child in this one, played by Corey Feldman. I think that this Tommy Jarvis saga is really good. I don't necessarily think that the movies themselves are always perfect, but I do quite enjoy the storyline, like continuing actual plot threads in between movies with Tommy. I don't know, it feels nice like seeing something actually matter and continue in between movies besides Jason. This one has some pretty good stunts. There are 2 whole separate times where women either fall or crash through a window in some way and like fall to the ground in one way or another. So I appreciate this movie for kind of bringing some excitement back to the franchise after 3 really kind of failed in that department. I also think that the kills are pretty decent in this one. I remember one of the problems I had was that they felt a little too obvious. Like the setup was like, you're going to focus a lot of time on this one thing that's going to very clearly become a part of how the person is killed or something. They felt a little too like prepared type of thing for me. So the surprise factor wasn't as good. And I think that Jason is still pretty good in this one. He feels like he's definitely reaching supernatural status. Again, he's not yet a zombie, but he survives a little bit more than he should, and he keeps having, you know, kind of supernatural strength and whatnot. Between 3 and this one, I kind of start to question, like, okay, is Jason just a normal guy? I'm not so sure anymore. And then, you know, this movie ends in a very iconic way with Tommy Jarvis killing Jason. Jason dies. He gets like the machete through his face and he like slides down on it, which is really good. And then Tommy just keeps going, die, 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 as he does what he does. I also like that Tommy once again kind of does the thing from part 2 where he uses his knowledge, brain, and skills to trick Jason. This time he makes himself look like boy Jason. I'm not really sure why that works on Jason, because Jason is Jason, but hey, whatever, it's fine with me, and the ending is great. And also, once again, there's a storm and a vehicle having issues, so thank you for continuing the trend, but it's time for the next movie.
If the memory of Jason still haunts you, you're not alone.
All right, and now we have Friday the 13th, A New Beginning from 1985. So this one replaces Jason. Jason is not in this movie. Jason is still dead. There's a copycat killer. Bring back Jason. I don't want to see a copycat. I want Jason. I'm gonna be honest with you though. I actually don't mind that much. Of course I want my boy Jason back. But I do like this movie because the rest of the movie is good and enjoyable. I just don't love that Jason isn't here. And the reason you can tell is because the hockey mask is different. It doesn't have the little slice in it from when Tommy killed him before. It's some guy. He's a paramedic, and they make it very obvious that he is going to be the killer. And once again, I will say I really appreciate the Tommy Jarvis continuation here. In this movie, he's very troubled. He's a teenager now. I think he's like 18 is what they say, 17 or 18 in that ballpark. I think he did spend time at a psychiatric like ward or something, but he's being transferred to like a wayward home for teenagers that have issues, basically. And I think that kind of helps save this movie, honestly. I think the whole setting and the kind of renewal of it all and all the different characters really make this movie feel unique and stand out. I like the different aspects of it. And big shout out to Reggie, aka Reckless, and Demon. They are great characters, and I wish they were in the movie longer, and it upsets me that they aren't because they're really fun. And like a lot of the characters end up being kind of like the one note stereotype type of character, but I will say that despite that, they are at least still interesting in that they are fun to watch. They're entertaining. With some of the characters in other movies, like yeah, they kind of play on tropes and are stereotypes in a way, but they aren't entertaining. They're just kind of boring. In this movie, sure, they don't really have a whole lot of depth, but they are at least fun for me to watch, and that makes me like the movie more. It's interesting because the next movie we'll see that Tommy does not feel like this Tommy, and they are different actors. I don't think he's necessarily written or performed all that well all the time. Like I said, I enjoy him being here, and I like his story. I like that he continues to have the little autistic special interest in making, costumes and designs and horror creatures and whatever. So I appreciate appreciate that he still has that. This is another movie where the kills are mostly off screen. There are a couple of interesting ones. There's like an eyeball gouging, and there's like a belt twist where Jason uses a belt, wraps it around someone, and then twists it tight around the face. I don't think they necessarily look that great, but I enjoy the creativity of it. And then Roy Burns, he's the copycat killer. He dies at the end of the movie by being like pushed off of a barn, and he lands on a bed of spikes of some sort, and it reminds me of the pit fatality from Mortal Kombat, so I appreciated that about it. And what I will say is definitely never replace Jason again, but I think with Tommy Jarvis it makes enough sense in this specific movie. And I do kind of like the parallels between Roy Burns and Pamela. Roy's son was killed by some aggressive kid at this place, so Roy ends up going after people and killing them, basically like Pamela snapped and killed all the counselors and whatever. So it's a very similar sort of setup, and I like the parallels. I just thought that was kind of unique. And once again, there's at least a storm in this movie, and a vehicle breaks down in this one as well, so we get that continued despite it not even being Jason. So that's 5 movies in a row where there are a storm and a vehicle breakdown. But with that being said, it's time for the next movie.
Jason belongs in hell, and I'm gonna see he gets there.
And now we have Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, from 1986. Yep, it's time to bring my boy back from the dead. Right off the bat, Jason gets brought back to life because Tommy is still a little not well. He still has great little fun quirks that I like about him that makes him still feel like Tommy Jarvis, but at the end of the day, he is also kind of just a dude, a guy. Basically, he decides that he needs to see Jason's body to confirm that he is actually dead. Something gets stuck in Jason's grave, and lightning strikes it, and he comes back to life. And Jason is a zombie now, and he has gray skin. And welcome to the party, zombie Jason. It's nice to see you. They also do an interesting thing in this movie. The town or whatever has renamed Camp Crystal Lake to like Camp Forest Green or some shit, some generic basic stuff like that.
No one in Forest Green wants to be reminded of what that maniac did here. That's why we changed the name.
You see that it is Crystal Lake, but it's just weird. Why do you feel the need to change the name of it? Once again, Tommy Jarvis falls in a similar boat where I really like him as a character and I like certain parts of his performance, but once again, I find that his writing and his acting kind of falls a little short at times. Again, nothing super terrible that kind of ruins the character for me. It's just, I think it could have just been spruced up, improved a little bit in a couple of ways. Unfortunately, this movie falls back into the category of having like lackluster and boring characters. There aren't that many interesting ones. The final girl, I think her name is Megan, is fine, and her dad is a sheriff, so I kind of like the sheriff a little bit. It's fun. Basically, Tommy Jarvis is acting rightfully crazy because he has seen Jason resurrect, and he tries to go to the cops, and then they think he's crazy and they lock him up. Megan helps him escape or something, and it's this whole thing where the cops end up going after Tommy, but really it's Jason, and it's a whole thing that I think adds some fun shenanigans to this movie. Anything to kind of spruce up the plot a little bit, spruce up the general idea, is good in my books, because at this point we're 6 movies in. You gotta have something fun. And then I don't think really any of the kills kind of stand out to me. There's like a heart rip in the beginning, which is fairly decent. It's like Kano's fatality. And then there's like an RV that crashes and kind of explodes, so that's pretty fun. I like the RV doing that thing, and it crashes because of Jason. Jason kills the 2 people in the RV. The ending is pretty fun though. I really like the absurdity of Jason and Tommy kind of wrestling around in a boat on the lake as he tries to like get a chain around Jason's neck and connected to a big rock that will make him sink and drown or something. And then at some point like gas spills and there's fire on the water, and it makes it all the more crazy and absurd. And I think it's great. Make it absurd. I love that shit. That shit's cool. That's fun. Have fun with the movie, baby. And then I guess like a couple things to mention. There's the cop that has the ya bang line. And also it's fucking crazy to me that Tommy brings the hockey mask to Jason, like the grave site. Number one, if it's the actual original hockey mask, why the fuck does Tommy have that? How the fuck does Tommy have that? Number two, why would he bring it to Jason? You're checking to see if he's dead. Why would you want to give him the parting gift of a hockey mask? There is another storm in this movie, so that's good. I don't necessarily count the RV crashing, but what I will count is there's a car that Jason slashes the tires of, and I think I'm okay with that. The RV crashing just feels like a little bit too much for me to count, but these are all my stupid arbitrary rules that I've made up, so it honestly doesn't matter. But other than that, it's time for the next movie.
Hey, Tina, isn't this the way they wear their jackets back in the mental hospital?
And now we have Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood from 1988. So this one has a girl with superpowers. The final girl has like telekinesis or some shit for some reason. I guess that people like this movie. I think it's fine. I don't think it's that good though. Yeah, the main girl, what the fuck is her name? Tina. Her name is Tina. Back ages ago on Camp Crystal Lake, she accidentally killed her father with her powers, and she feels guilty over that. Her father was shown to be at least partially an abusive man, so I don't necessarily blame Tina for anything. Also, you didn't know what you were doing. I miss when the characters were people that I somewhat cared about or was even remotely interested in or like thought were entertaining. This one is not that at all, except for maybe the one guy. His name is Nick. And the only reason I think Nick is fine is because he kind of supports Tina. It's really just Tina, her doctor, Dr. Cruz, her mom, and Nick. And then there's a whole other house full of teenagers doing shit that they do in these movies. They're just there to die, and they don't have any distinguishing characteristics, so I couldn't be bothered to even think about caring about them. Dr. Cruz is a very interesting character. He kind of makes this movie a little more interesting for me. He's like using Tina and like making her upset on purpose and trying to keep her feeling like she's crazy in order to kind of exploit her powers, because he really wants to get to learn her powers and use her for, I don't know, just something. Like as a doctor, he wants to study her and become famous off of her, I guess, or something along those lines. And at this point, I'm willing to say that Jason is like, obviously he's undead, but Jason is fucking teleporting in this movie. He's teleporting around. He doesn't teleport all the time, and it's probably realistically just bad editing and like direction, but he genuinely does just fucking teleport and is places where he shouldn't be at times, so take that into your consideration at large. Again, a lot of this movie is filler. There's a party going on, I guess, so it's a whole generic slasher type of slop. I do like some of the kills though. There's a party horn that gets pushed into one girl's eye, and it's really silly because it makes a funny noise when it happens, but the actual, when they show it later on, it looks pretty good. Some guy gets his face slashed and it looks pretty decent. Some guy gets his head cut off and his head gets put in like a pot plant and it gets like thrown at some point, and that's really funny, so I like that little moment. And then there's a skinny dipper in this one, and her whole vagina is on display. That felt icky and gross. I did not want to see that. We already know how these movies are with showing boobs, but when you show a skinny dipper from below and you can fully see her coochie, I'm like, oh, why? do I need to see that? And then the end is fun. There's a whole bunch of scuffles between Tina and Jason. Jason gets electrocuted. He gets a whole house collapsed in on him. He falls into the basement. The house explodes and it looks really fucking good. There's a lot of fun stuff at the end of the movie that kind of help make it a better, more interesting movie in general. One of my problems is that Jason has his mask off a little too frequently at the end. For a reveal, that's fine, but if you're gonna just keep his face being out in the open, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. But I do like his design generally speaking in this movie. In this one, he has like little pieces of like his like spine and like ribs showing, so I like that he is fully like a zombie, and the design is fun to me. And then the way that Jason gets put down is Tina somehow telekinetically summons her dead dad, who pulls Jason back into the lake. I thought that was really stupid and I didn't like it. I guess in order to take down zombie Jason, you need a telekinetic teenager and an undead dad. This movie, however, breaks the mold, and there's not a storm in this one. It's kind of hard to tell because it seems like, based on sound and visuals, that there's supposed to be lightning and thunder, but it never rains, so I'm not actually sure about any of that, so I don't count it. There's not a storm in this movie, and it deeply upset me that there wasn't. And Tina does crash her car at some point in this movie. For some reason, I don't like counting the crashes themselves, but if you want to count it as just like having some sort of mishap happen with a vehicle, then that is present in this movie and has been in every movie. But there is no storm. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. It's time for the next movie. Okay, it's time for Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. Yeah, this one's pretty bad, folks. Not gonna lie to you. You know what? Actually, I will say this. I didn't hate this one as much as I thought I would. I had known of the pre-existing lore and that fans tend to hate this one, and I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. Maybe that was just my expectations being so low that helped. I'm not sure. But obviously, I think that this movie does fail, and one of the reasons it fails is because it promises Manhattan, and 90 to 95% of the runtime is Jason just on a boat, and that's fine. If you want to be Jason on a boat, you're allowed to do that. I actually don't really mind that. But when you promise Manhattan and then Manhattan is like barely a thing in this movie, I kind of go, okay, why then? And like Jason being on a boat does allow for some fun moments to happen. There are some goofy little set pieces. I like that it feels a little like weirdly claustrophobic in a way. And then the characters, they're pretty much in line with most of the rest of these movies, where they're nothing spectacular. Some of them are a little more interesting because they have at least more of a stereotype going for them, which makes them at least kind of entertaining. The final girl, Rennie, I don't mind her. I like that she has water trauma. Basically, her uncle, who is her legal guardian at Camp Crystal Lake at some point, was like, you need to learn how to swim. So he pushed her off of a boat right after telling her about how Jason would come and kill kids that didn't know how to swim, and then boy Jason did try to drag her under, so she has trauma over the water, and I guess maybe a connection to Jason in some way because of it. And the worst part of this movie is that she keeps having visions of Jason as a boy, as a child, and it's really bad and really stupid. Jason looks different every time, like it looks like a different kid or different prosthetic makeup every time, and I assume it's because they randomly were like, oh, we should oh my god. Oh, we should add this guy. We should add another one of those moments. And I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. It's bad. And then the end of the movie is absolutely dog shit stupid. They're in a sewer toxic waste dump section of Manhattan, and she throws a bucket of toxic waste on his face, which causes his face to get all melty, and then the whole system flushes and he dissolves. But then he also doesn't dissolve, and he just turns turns back into a boy. It's really stupid, and I hate the ending, and I hate all of the boy Jason stuff in this one. Also, I feel like I didn't do enough justice by harping on Rennie's uncle as much as I should have. I said he was a piece of shit, but he's also a pedo, and he just is a gross man. There's also some friendly teacher that helps Rennie out, and a guy named Toby that also helps her out. I like that they both are caring people. They don't necessarily do much, but they are nice, at least. There's some fun kills in this one. There's a girl that gets her head baseball bat swung with a guitar. There's a girl that gets like just choked out, which is nothing, but then Jason throws her body to the floor, and it's fucking brutal. I don't know how they did that. I feel like the stunt performer was recovering from that for days. It was genuinely like such a hard slam. There's a guy that falls on like a radio antenna thing that looks good. There's a guy named Julius who's a boxer, and he gets his head punched off by Jason, and it's silly, but it's kind of fun. And then the uncle gets full body dunked into a gross barrel in Manhattan and drowned, and I think that it's a fitting way for him to go. And then, like I said, Manhattan barely is a thing in this movie. There are a few hero shots of like Jason in the city. There's a part where there's a billboard for like a hockey team or something, and Jason does the head tilt at it because it interests him, and I think it's really cute when Jason gets little moments like that, so I appreciated it. It's not the most interesting movie, but there is once again a storm, and we also have vehicle troubles because the cruise ship that they are on has difficulties. There's a fire at some point, and it starts sinking, and it counts. So take that. But also, next movie.
The mere mention of the name Jason Voorhees has been enough to send a shudder of fear through the hearts of an entire nation.
Okay, welcome to Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday from 1993. Yeah, we're in the 90s now, and we are no longer going with the Friday the 13th title. I think that's because of rights issues. Jason Goes to Manhattan is the last kind of main Friday the 13th movie, and then from this point on, it's like new distributors, weird legal stuff going on, and you can really tell because the movies stop caring about continuity, they start doing random fucking shit, and it gets a little crazy. Jason Goes to Hell, yeah, this one is really bad if you want to see Jason Voorhees as Jason Voorhees, but I think as a movie, it's surprisingly not the worst thing I've ever seen. So again, they ignore continuity. I have no idea how Jason got back from Manhattan to Crystal Lake. It honestly doesn't matter. The movie opens with Jason basically getting airstriked by the military. He gets blown to smithereens. His heart gets blown out of his body. We see that it's still beating. And then the government is collecting him because I guess they want to study him because he's like a supernatural force of some sort. And so a coroner ends up with the body, and the heart hypnotizes him somehow into chowing down on that good old Jason heart, which I guess possesses the coroner with Jason's soul. So Jason is now in the coroner's body, and then the rest of the movie is Jason has to keep switching bodies because the bodies get corrupted and will not last long enough. And the way that he does that is by using his slug sona. He has a little slug version of himself that he spits out the mouth and into the mouth of someone else, and then he is in that new person's body. It's fucking stupid. It's ridiculous. It doesn't feel like a Jason or Friday the 13th movie, but it's just batshit crazy enough that I get my enjoyment out of it. They also decide to implement the lore that Jason has a sister. I'm not fucking kidding. Apparently Pamela had both Jason and a daughter. The sister has a daughter, and the daughter has a daughter. So there are 3 women that are related to Jason. That is important all of a sudden because according to this bounty hunter dude who's a badass, the only way that Jason can properly resurrect himself is if he uses a Voorhees body, and the only way Jason can die for good is if a Voorhees kills him.
In a Voorhees was he born, through a void he may be reborn.
It's this whole thing, and it's ridiculous, but it, I guess, makes for some entertaining scenes. And also, unfortunately, even when Jason does look like himself, I don't really like his design in this one. I think the mask kind of being like dug into his face skin is weird, but I do think that Kane Hodder, who is Jason in these movies now, is kind of one of the best Jason performers, and I like his movements, and I think he makes Jason look good when he is playing Jason. I also like the characters in this movie. They're like some pretty campy performances, and like there's a whole diner crew that very much brings me back to like the OG first two movies, where you have these like goofy, very weird characters that are just really enjoyable to watch and to have on the screen. It really makes this feel like it's a Friday the 13th movie, despite everything else making it not really feel like a Friday the 13th movie. And I like the two leads. Their names are Jessica and Steven. Jessica is the daughter of the sister of Jason. The sister dies, so it's just the daughter and her like infant, who is a baby. So Jason could not transfer into the sister. He is now going after Jessica, potentially the baby, because he could also use the baby if he so desired. Meanwhile, Steven is like the ex-boyfriend that still loves Jessica and tries his best to take care of her. I just really like Steven's performance. The acting is really good. There are a lot of fun moments with him. Like there's a whole scene where he has a cop friend and they're like bickering while and fighting each other like outside of this cop car, and it's just moments like that, little moments that aren't necessarily necessary but add a lot of life to the movie, which I appreciate. And then the kills are also pretty good. I think actually this movie has one of the franchise's all-time bests. It's probably not the best, but it's still pretty damn good. And it's a girl who's in a tent. It's just in the beginning of the movie. They're having sex, as you do in a Friday the 13th movie. The machete comes through the tent and into her, and it just like splits her open like from like torso down, and it's a really good kill, and it looks really good as well. I like the diner woman that gets her like chin or jaw like shoved in. There's a bit where Jason gets impaled on rebar and he pulls another woman onto it with him. So there's some fun kills here. It's a bad movie, but I had my fun watching it. And also the whole Voorhees killing a Voorhees thing is silly, and she has a magic dagger for some reason. And then there's no storm and there's no vehicle issues in this one. There is like supernatural lighting when Jason gets a portal open to hell that drags him down with it, but I don't really count that because there's not rain. Anyway, next movie.
What the hell is that? You've got to be kidding me.
Alright, gang, and now we have Jason X from 2001. Oh man, Jason X is a special movie. It's so stupid, it's so campy, and I really like it. Obviously, it's not my favorite, but I still think for a stupid, dumb fun movie, this is one of the best dumb fun movies you're gonna find in the franchise. And I guess kind of my thesis point of this franchise is that they've never been particularly good at creating good movies. That isn't to say that myself and others really love and enjoy these movies. I'm just saying on like a technical, creative level, they're not necessarily good. There are a few here and there maybe. My point is, when you're full of a lot of slashers, generic in some ways, and they're not necessarily good, you might as well have fun. So basically they ignored the whole thing from Jason Goes to Hell where he gets dragged to hell, and now we're set in the future where there is a research facility at Crystal Lake and they have captured Jason. He gets free and they get brought into a cryogenic freezer. He gets trapped there alongside another girl that he injured, and they freeze. And then even farther into the future, after the Earth has died, a crew of explorers find these two cryogenically frozen individuals, one being Jason, the other being the girl, and they bring them on board, and you can see that things would go bad from there because Jason's gonna wake up in space. And I think that Jason's design is pretty good in this movie. I like him before, and then I especially like when he gets uberified. Yeah, Jason becomes Uber Jason at some point in this movie, and that's not anything that we or I, the fans, or myself made up. That is his name in the credits in this movie. It's Uber Jason. Basically, he gets all blown to smithereens a little bit, like arm and leg lost and chunk out of his torso, and then he combines with some like nanotechnology type of thing, and he becomes Uber Jason, and I'm a big fan of Uber Jason. But non-Uber Jason looks kind of more human in this one, which I like, and it's mostly because it's Kane Hodder without like a whole bunch of prosthetics, and I'm fine with that. I like it when Jason kind of feels like a real man, and he's not a zombie in this one, so I also like that about him. And I like the general idea of just putting Jason in space. At the end of the movie, we see that Jason gets blown out into space and he hurtles toward Earth 2. Yes, there is a sequel planet, and he's theoretically going to cause havoc there. So I look forward to that, even though I'll probably never see it. That makes me sad, honestly, because I want to see Uber Jason kill more people. I'm a pretty big fan of the characters. Obviously, there are some shitty characters, both in personality and in depth. Again, they have a more of a camp feel to them, so I appreciate that about them.
Guys, it's okay. He just wanted his machete back.
I think KM is by far the best character in the movie. She is an android, and I really like her, and she's a fucking badass, and I want to see more badass women and or androids in movies. Please give to me. And I like the final girl, Rowan. She is the girl that was attacked on Earth and was cryogenically frozen. I like that she kind of knows what Jason is, and she's like, oh, we're fucked. This is bad. This is really bad. No, dump him. Do something. You do not keep him on board. And then the piece of shit doctor or whatever is like, no, we're gonna keep him because I can make money off of him. And you can see why that would go badly. There's a sergeant guy played by Peter Mensa who's pretty cool. He's a badass. I like Crutch. He's cool. There's a guy that made KM. I think he's fine. But even like small characters, like there's a goofball named Azrael that I like. So there's a whole lot of stuff that makes this movie fun to watch. And I would be remiss to not mention the scene where they trick Jason temporarily. It's not a VR setup, but like a VR room holographic thing or whatever. They trick Jason by putting him in like Crystal Lake, and then there's two girls who are topless in sleeping bags, and they talk to each other about like wanting to have premarital sex, and then Jason beats them, like he slams them into each other as they're in the sleeping bags, and it's absolutely peak. It's wonderful. It is the best part of this franchise becoming self-aware, because it is silly and it is overdone, so we're gonna make fun of it and it's gonna be beautiful. I'm also kind of impressed by like the sci-fi and the digital effects work in this movie. I think the set pieces are good, but also the digital effects hold up pretty good. Not the best at all times, but it's pretty good. And then I think a lot of the kills are pretty decent as well. Rather, there are a couple of kills that are decent in this movie. There's the girl that gets her head frozen in like nitrogen, whatever it is, and then he smashes her head and it's beautiful. One of the best kills in the franchise. And then there's another person that gets like falls onto like a corkscrew thing and they spin around on it, and Jason does the head tilt because it's fascinating. So there are some good kills here as well, and there are no storms. And I get that they're in space, but it could have been an asteroid storm, it could have been a simulated storm, but there are no storms, and that makes me sad. But you know what, I will count some sort of vehicle mishap, because the spaceship they're on is going into like self-destruct mode. They crash into a thing which causes damage, and they need to escape the spaceship. I'm gonna count it. It's in space, and I feel like it would be difficult to get that title otherwise, so I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. Anyway, next movie.
Freddy versus Jason.
Place your bets.
Okay, and now we have Freddy vs. Jason from 2003. Yep, it's time for Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees to have the ultimate mashup. A lot of people like this movie. I'm just gonna get out of the way. I didn't necessarily enjoy it. I liked it to some degree, but the reason I liked it is because of the ending when Jason and Freddy actually have their brawl. And there are some other parts in between too that are good, but generally speaking, I don't actually think this is that good. And I understand that it's Freddy Krueger, so it shouldn't be surprising, but this movie was surprisingly so I didn't appreciate that. It's also like very briefly racist and homophobic. Freddy says something kind of racist to the black girl, and then the black girl refers to Freddy as the F slur. I didn't love that. I think it's very telling of it being 2003, however. So I guess there's that. I think the setup is really good. I like that Freddy has kind of lost all power because the town has chosen to forget about him, and so he can no longer impact fear. So he resurrects Jason, sends him over to fucking Elm Street so that Jason can reinstill fear in people, and then Freddy will hopefully get his power back. One of my problems is that the characters are pretty bad in this one. I don't think that they're very enjoyable or good. One of them is played by Jason Ritter. I like Jason Ritter. That's what I'll say about that. And then the other characters, I honestly forget about most of them. What even is the main girl's name? Who you name is Lori? Lori. Her name is Lori. She's here. She's not bad. She's not like super exciting or interesting, but she's not terrible. And then all of the other characters, fucking whatever, dude. I don't care. Get rid of them. You know, dispatch of them. And then there are a couple of cool kills. There's like an abusive guy in the beginning that gets stabbed on the bed, and like he gets stabbed several times and his guts like actually come out of the hole at the bottom of the bed. And then to top it all off, Jason takes the bed and it goes doink and bends the dude at a not a good angle. And then there's a stoner guy that is possessed by Freddy at the time, and he gets like cut in half, and it's pretty good. Other than that, I think the rest of the kills are pretty lame. There are some fun like kind of sequences, I guess, that end up in people dying, but I don't know, none of them really particularly stand out to me. There's a party scene at some point which takes place in a cornfield, which is a weird place for a party, by the way, and Jason is there and he goes on a rampage and he's on fire while doing it, which is really fucking cool. I didn't think of that, but someone did, and they were right for thinking of that. But then there are also just a lot of moments that are stupid or bad in some way. The opening kill when the guy gets sandwiched in the bed. Jason, for some reason, only kills that one guy. There are 3 other people at the house, and it doesn't make sense for him to not kill those other people. Actually, no. He also kills a girl, I think. So a girl, a guy, and then 3 other survivors. There's a stoner Freddy worm. Not only is it not fun or funny, it also looks bad. There's a weird setup with some coma patients at like a psychiatric ward. The town is using drugs to keep people from having nightmares, basically, and some of them are in comas because of it. It's a whole setup to have a scare happen, but it's also bad because the drugs that they're looking for are in this room, and they were in this room before, but then they leave the room, and then something bad happens in that room, and they come back to the room and they find that the drugs are no longer there. But ultimately, I'm like, why didn't you find the drugs beforehand? And then my least favorite thing about this movie by far is the fact that Jason is afraid of water. No, he's not. Sure, Jason drowned as a kid, so he isn't going to be like a huge fan of the water, I suppose. But throughout this entire franchise, we've seen Jason be perfectly fine with water. He swam to the boat in Manhattan movie, and also he lives on a lake. And then in the fucking Freddy realm, Freddy does like the babiest of baby waterfalls I've ever seen, and it stops Jason, and he's like suddenly very scared of it. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's so stupid. So anyway, that's dumb and I hate it. But I like when Freddy plays pinball with Jason. That's fun. There's a construction site at Crystal Lake. I didn't go back to check, but it looked like it was maybe like they were building a theme park or something there. I really want to see a fucking theme park movie now where Jason kills at a theme park. That would be awesome. Hey, Jason universe, make that happen. Do it now. And then there are no storms. They do crash a van, so maybe I'll count that. But other than that, it's time for the next movie.
Jason? He came back.
And now we have the final movie, Friday the 13th from 2009. Yes, this is a remake, a reboot of sorts, and I think it's pretty decent. Now, this one is actually kind of a remake of sorts of the first three movies. It reintroduces Pamela and her decapitation in the beginning. It has the parts where Jason has a bag head temporarily, and the climax of the movie also features Jason like getting hanged by like a chain or a rope. And then part 3, he finds a hockey mask. The getting hanged thing is from part 3, so that's from part 3. And the other part from part 2 is a girl looks like Pamela and uses that to her advantage. I like this version of Jason. They decided to make Jason fast, which we haven't seen before. Like, he runs and is very aggressive. He's also like basically a survivalist in this one. He's using like tools and like bear traps and has his own like little camp where he has lights and stuff. I do miss the childlike whimsy of him. He feels more like an adult in this one, and I know that age-wise he is an adult, but I do like him being kind of developmentally like behind and being more childlike. So I miss that aspect of him, but I do think that this is fun because it's a new take on the character and it makes him more intimidating, honestly. And I think that this one has some good characters. Fucking Jared Padalecki, aka Sam Winchester from Supernatural, is here. It's a few years after the show started, so I don't know when they found the time to do this, but he's here and I like his character. His name is Clay. He's searching for his sister.
My sister, she came camping up around here with some friends.
Who went missing like 6 months ago, by the way, which is a weird thing to specify because she still acts terrified whenever Jason comes around and she's like in her thing. But like, he's keeping her alive. He's giving her food and water. So I don't know why at this point she's still piss pants terrified of him. There's a fake final girl named Jenna who I like. She's a good, kind person and I like it. And unfortunately, like, the movie at the very end switches final girls like as a fake out, right? So Jenna is like the main girl this entire movie, hanging out with Clay, with Jared Padalecki. Then at the end they find Jared's sister Whitney, who looks like Pamela supposedly, and Whitney becomes the final girl when Jenna is murdered. And I go, okay, why? Even if all three of them lived, I'd be fine, but the fact that they killed Jenna was kind of annoying and replaced her with Whitney. I'm like, yeah, but Whitney's barely fucking in this movie. She's been captured by Jason this whole time. She has no personality. I don't care about her. I did care about Jenna, so at least I was like, yeah, go Jenna. This time I'm like, whatever, dude. I don't care what happens. There's a douchebag named Trent who is an asshat. He's just a terrible dude. I think he's a frat bro. He's also rich. I like the little beef he has with Clay. I am confused a little bit because I thought that Trent was boyfriend girlfriend with Jenna, and maybe they are / were, but then when Jenna goes off with Clay, Trent has intercourse with a girl who has stupendous breasts. His words, not mine. So I don't know if they were always a couple. It seems like the writers kind of forgot what the relationships were. Like, they call each other babe, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, but are you dating? And then there's two characters, Chewie and Lawrence. I think they're both pretty great. I love their little bromance. My headcanon is that they're actually gay for each other and they don't know it yet. And they won't know because they're murdered, but hypothetically, it could still work. And there are some decent kills in this movie. I think they're pretty good. There's a girl that gets like hung up above a fire in a sleeping bag, so she gets roasted alive, which is brutal. There's a guy that gets his leg stuck in a bear trap. The effects are pretty good on it. And then Jason comes fucking running, like stomping in, which is a thing I also like. He has good boot the thuds and music as well. He comes in running and just fucking puts the machete in his face. There's a guy while driving a boat, an arrow gets shot into his head by Jason. I like Jason using a bow and arrow. That's pretty fun, actually. And then there's a really silly moment where this girl, who is topless, of course, is hiding under a dock from Jason, and he stabs the machete into the top of her head and lifts it up to take the machete back. She gets lifted up with it, primarily to show off the boobs, and it's really silly. And then I also like Lawrence's kill. Jason, like, tomahawk throws a whole axe at him. It hits him in the back, and then at some point, like, he gets pressed down so the axe pops through the other side of him, and it's good. And we finally have done it. We have another storm. We're back on track, and I'm also willing to say that there are vehicle issues because I guess Jason stole the keys to Clay's motorcycle and also a cop car. That's good, and I like it. This has been the last movie in the franchise as of now. I want them to make another movie, but they're not doing it yet. And now it's time to rank these movies. And there's a lot of them, so I'm gonna go through this kind of fast. There's 12 movies in total. So coming in 12th place, in last place, is Jason Goes to Manhattan. Yeah, it's not a good movie. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but ultimately it's kind of boring. The characters aren't that interesting, and it has the stupid boy Jason hallucinations and sewer system thing at the end that I absolutely hate. So that really brings it down, and ultimately it doesn't really matter in the continuity at all, so fuck it. And then coming in at 11th place is Jason Goes to Hell. I mean, I actually surprisingly enjoyed this movie a fair amount, mostly because I think it's ridiculous and stupid, which makes for kind of a fun viewing experience. But there's so little Jason as himself that it's barely a Friday the 13th movie, and I don't really care for the stupid slug Sona stuff. I didn't even mention it before, but he gets resurrected in the end by going into his sister's vagina as a slug. That sentence that I just said is a sentence that I should never have had to have said, and I think that's part of what makes it worthy of 11th place. And then at 10th place, Friday the 13th Part 3. Yeah, Part 3 is, I think, the most lackluster, boring movie in the franchise. The ones below it at least have stupid stuff going on that can be fun. This one is mostly just generic and boring. The reason I kind of give it somewhat of an edge is because it is where Jason finally gains his iconic hockey mask, and I think it is worth giving the movie some credit for that. But otherwise, yeah, it's not a very good movie. I don't particularly care for it. I thought there were some fun moments and some fun kills, but it's not really worth the watch. And then coming in at 9th place, this one's gonna upset people. I have Freddy versus Jason. I'm sorry, y'all. I genuinely didn't really like this movie. I thought the plot was kind of stupid. I didn't enjoy like any of the characters. I liked very specifically the Freddy and the Jason interactions, except for when Jason is afraid of the water. I think that's so stupid, and it made me dislike this movie even more. Really, the only reason I like this movie as a thing that exists is because of the actual fight between Freddy and Jason at the end of the movie. Other than that, I don't really care much for it. And then coming in at 8th place, another one that I think is going to upset people. I have Friday the 13th, The New Blood, aka the one with the telekinetic teenager. I think people like it for some reason. Sorry, that came off as mean. I think people like it because it's different. I do think the telekinetic parts are fun. I think it makes for a good finale to the film, except for the stupid undead dad thing. But other than that, I didn't think this was a very enjoyable movie. It was mostly boring, and I really only cared about like 2 of the characters. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of fell flat for me, but I didn't think it was terrible. I would watch it again. It's just, you know, Coming in at 7th place, just falling below the halfway mark, we have Friday the 13th from 2009. I think this movie is pretty good. I like new Jason as like a fast, powerful guy. There's a lot of stuff here though that kind of just falls back on the same tropes that we've seen a million times before, and not all of the characters are that interesting. I don't like the final girl switch up, but I do like some of the characters, so I enjoy this movie. I think it's good. But ultimately, I think that this movie tries to do too much sometimes, and a remake and a reboot for me always has to do something special to kind of warrant its own existence. But ultimately, it does just feel like they're like, let's take the first three movies and then kind of reshuffle it a little bit. And then coming in at 6th place, aka the top half of the franchise, is Jason X. Listen, I understand that it's a bad movie. I'm not gonna pretend that it's not, but I think it's really fun and I think it's stupid as hell in the best way possible. This is a movie that I would put on if I wanted to just watch something silly, have a laugh or two, and enjoy some interesting, fun kills on occasion. And also, I like Jason in it. I like Uber Jason. Obviously, it's campy as hell and it's stupid, but I think that this is the best movie where it's kind of recognizing what it is and playing into that. And then coming in at 5th place, we're at the top 5 now, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folks, is Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. This is the first movie in the Tommy Jarvis saga. This is Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis. I really like the Tommy Jarvis aspect of it. I like a few of the characters. What I don't like about this movie is that there's a whole side plot with other characters that are very boring, very forgettable, and the kills are very obvious and pre-set up. So there are parts of this movie where I'm like, I love this. And then there are parts of the movie where I'm like, this is pretty boring and generic and it's whatever, I've seen it before. So I think it is a good movie, but it's that's just how it is, sorry. And then coming in at 4th place, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. This is the final Tommy Jarvis saga movie. Again, I think the finale of this movie is what helps kind of make it more fun for me. I like following Tommy Jarvis along as he gets harassed by the cops. I think this one has a plot that feels unique and different enough from some of the other movies that sets it apart from them, and I think that it has just some good moments in it, some good tense feelings about it, and I'm a big fan of it. So yeah, I like this one. And then in 3rd place, we have Friday the 13th, the original. Yeah, I mean, this one started it all. I really appreciate this for what it is. Obviously, Jason is not really a thing yet, and that's okay. He doesn't need to be, because Betsy Palmer does a good job as Pamela. Obviously, the reveal of her being the killer is nothing. It's kind of stupid, doesn't really make sense. It comes out of nowhere, but her performance is great enough where I'm like, no, this is actually pretty good. And I like most of it. I think that it's a actually kind of tense and scary movie at times. It's a little slow sometimes, but it sets up a great formula. This one is one of the few that genuinely feels like a camp movie in that it takes place at a camp, and I like that about it. And then coming in at 2nd place, we have Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. And this is the second in the Tommy Jarvis saga. I like this one even though it has Roy Burns. Honestly, I considered rating this one lower because it's not actually Jason Voorhees, but honestly, I just enjoy this as a movie. I like Tommy Jarvis in this one. I like the halfway house part of it. I like that Tommy Jarvis is a disturbed character that has trauma that he has to work through. So I think it's pretty decent and I like it. And then coming in at 1st place is Friday the 13th Part 2. Yeah, I think that this is kind of where the movie does what it needs to do, and it evolves from the first one and improves upon it in a lot of ways. This one, I actually like almost all of the characters. I think they're all interesting in one way or another. Surprisingly, characters live this one, which you may not have expected from it. Again, this one feels like a real camp, like there's actual stuff happening here. It feels like a lived in place. It really gives it some good vibes. I really like Baghead Jason. Again, he's not as iconic as Hockey Mask Jason, but I really like his performance performance. He's like stumbling and tripping around, and he really feels like a child in this movie, which I appreciate. So yeah, I quite like this one. It is my favorite. I think it just kind of takes the formula of the franchise and does it in the best way possible. With that being said, I'm finally done. I'm free. I get to fucking leave now. This took so long. I watched 12 movies. It took me over 2 hours to record. I'm going to die when I edit this video, but thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I love doing these videos and making my little franchise reviews, but also let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Friday the 13th movie? What's your favorite version of Jason? Do you like zombie Jason? Do you like human Jason? Do you like Uber Jason? What are your thoughts? Tell me down below. I'd love to know them. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!